Hi, I'm Bob Durante, and thank you for watching this month's Risk Insight video blog, Regulation, Gauging the Candidates' Views. With the U.S. presidential election days away, we are breaking down the views each candidate has on regulation and ultimately the impact on credit quality. First, let's establish the linkage between regulation and credit quality. Most notably, from a credit perspective, how does regulation impact the systemic risk within the United States? We define systemic risk as the collapse of an entire financial system or entire market. Since the Great Recession in 2008, regulatory legislation such as the Dodd-Frank Act has lowered the systemic risk in the United States. A good example is the Volcker Rule that limits banks from risky derivatives-based investments with their own funds. Let's caution that there are many interlinkages with regulation. So, for example, while in some cases systemic risk might be lower, further protecting our economy, those regulations might actually have a drag effect, both on the ability of banks to lend and also on their profitability. Now let's take a look at the candidates' views. The Trump campaign. According to published reports, the Trump campaign proposes the following: putting a new freeze on any federal regulation proposals, requiring regulators to rank all regulations and cut their least important ones, propose that the Dodd-Frank has to be eliminated or greatly changed. So if Mr. Trump is elected, we intend to focus on how a Trump administration would alter the Dodd-Frank Act. On the surface, there would be potential for heightened systemic risk. For example, if safeguards that limit banks' risky behavior are removed. However, if those safeguards remain in place, bank compliance costs are lowered, that could free up capital, increase lending, help bank profitability, and possibly provide a more macroeconomic benefit. In short, for a Trump administration, we would look in the future at the specificity of the changes to the Dodd-Frank Act to determine the ultimate impact on systemic risk and thus credit quality. The Clinton campaign. According to published reports, the Clinton campaign proposes the following: further discourage risky investment and lending behavior for the largest banks, incentivize banks to shrink and simplify, empower regulators to break up financial institutions that are viewed as too big or too risky. In contrast, the Clinton camp has signaled their intent to strengthen Dodd-Frank, especially for the largest financial institutions that pose the greatest systemic risk. So the analysis is more straightforward and predictable. A Clinton administration would likely add to the Dodd-Frank Act, continuing the trend of lowering systemic risk in the United States. We would look in the future to gauge the impact that any changes to Dodd-Frank would have on the largest banks and determine the decrease or increase in economic risk posed by tighter banking regulation. So, over the next few months, S&P Global Market Intelligence will be closely monitoring the new administration's actions to introduce or modify regulation, most notably the Dodd-Frank Act, and the impact that the new administration will have on credit quality. That's all for today. Don't forget to vote. Thanks for watching.